In yesterday's video, Alariel, Goddess of Life, became a soul pod, but she still made it to her destination. We're just waiting for her to be reborn. The Stormcast Eternals over in Akshi failed to get the brass chain so they could bind up Scarbrand, so Khorne's favorite weapon is still running rampant. We had the plot thicken in Shyish, as Nagash complicated the attempts of Sigmar to rebuild the Pantheon, and Archaon, the Ever-Chosen himself, the Ender of Worlds, has entered the Realmgate Wars conflict. Today's book will cover the God-Beast part of the Realmgate Wars campaign books, and it is an epic one indeed. This is really going to be sort of an Empire Strikes Back moment where the dark forces that be mount their counter-assault to Sigmar's war. And as such, this book covers Archaon's grand plan to crush Sigmar. I want to make this clear up front so that when we go into the separate narratives, it makes a lot more sense. A little bit of context for you. The gates of Azir are finally open. Archaon's been wanting to get in there for centuries. He's nearly conquered, I should say, almost every other realm except for Azir. He can't find an open gate to there. But Sigmar now opened the gates on his own, so all Archaon has to do is smash the Stormcast Eternals, get into one of the gates, and he can finally gain entrance to the Realm of Heavens. And to do that, he has something really big planned. Because you see, throughout the realms, there are beasts that are so big, they are the things of myth. They're titanic in size and nearly limitless in power. Their presence/power is so great that it defines the nature, culture, and mythos of the realm it's in. We already met one of them. Name was Argentine. And if you remember that story in Quest for Galmaraz, we were exploring the realm of Chaemon Metal, and there was a giant river of molten silver. And there was a great sky dragon that heated up the river and turned to liquid, and they couldn't get past it, so what they did was they called in the god of dragons, Dracothian. Hey, go fight and distract Argentine so that the river will stop being hot, you can climb up it, and make it to where Galmaraz is. And that's exactly what happened. God of Dragons comes in, distracts this god beast Argentine, who's literally so big it wraps around entire continents, heating up an entire river, distracts it. Argentine runs away, fighting Dracothian, and they're able to make it up the waterfall and capture Galmaraz. This is the kind of beast. Like I said, we've already interacted with it, but there's just multiple of these things that are so big they create myth, legend, and natural forces. Now what's interesting, we learned in that book that Argentine was not a good guy. The reason being, he's been twisted by the magics of Tzeentch himself. Remember, Realm of Metal is what Tzeentch had his mind on, corrupted the land, and did the same to the god beast residing within it. So Archaon's already got one on his side at his disposal, but he wants an army of them. When that realm gate to Azir is open, he wants to throw so many things at Sigmar that it just burns in his path. And so what this book follows is Archaon's plan to bind and corrupt god beasts in the realms. To that end, the stories in here cover 2 god beasts, but there are more that exist. I think that's very important to note. There are many of these creatures throughout the realms, but Archaon focuses on these 2 specifically in this book. For the first one, we go to the Realm of Fire, Akshi. There is a sub-realm within there called the Ashlands. And this is actually where the Brimstone Peninsula is. We've already been here during the opening acts when Korgus Kol was defeated. And I'll put a map up here for you to see kind of the battleground that we're fighting in. But there is a part in this where you see that little sun up above. Well, there is a second sun in this realm. His name is Ignax. This is a giant serpent of radiant fire energy. And he used to run rampant, burning the realm and things like that, but until Grugni bound him in chains, coiled him up like a little ball, and now he just sits there as a second sun in this part of the Realm of Fire. Off to the right side, you'll see there's a second part of this little narrative here called the Orb of Inferno, and we'll talk about that soon, but to make it really clear here, it's infested with demons. We'll talk about why in a bit. Now, after the Hammers of Sigmar opened the gates in the initial parts that we talked about at the beginning of this entire series, Sigmar sent in the Tempest Lords, a kind of brooding and awesome chamber of Stormcast Eternals. Sigmar said, you're 12 times the strength of normal men, and so they take that very literally, and so their goal with every forging that they're in is to kill at least 12 more enemies. It's kind of fun. And here we learn that the war between Stormcast Eternals and forces of Khorne in Akshi never really ended. Korgus Kol still stalks the lands. He went back from where the temple was that we got Galmaraz at, back to his gore tide. And now a new Khorne champion enters the arena, Valkia the Bloody. And this starts the longest war of the series so far, because here's what's happening. The Stormcast are trying to make a beachhead, but every day that they're there, more Khorne Bloodbound enter the fight. They just pour pour in. Tribes around the realm are all hearing this great fight with lightning men, and they're just like, yeah, I want to be a part of that, and just jump in. And so we see a different kind of combat. See, up to this point, everything's been the Stormcast smash in really quickly and destroy the enemy while they're off guard. But now we're talking about a long, protracted combat. This is totally different, and the Stormcast are getting ground down day by day. This is a new thing for them. It's a new kind of warfare where you're not just operating like kind of guerrilla style, popping up, hitting the enemy, and running away. Now you have to defend places, and it gets very difficult to do so. And Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, is standing around looking at this from above, kind of like a bird's eye view, and seeing that the Khorne Bloodbound are attacking, but they're not making much headway. They're not really pushing back the Stormcast, and so he decided to mix up the game a bit. Because the Stormcast were getting good at fighting Khorne, they found a way to kind of use their rage to put them in bad positions because they weren't thinking straight, and were really able to outsmart them. So a new type of enemy entering the fray changes the dynamic dramatically. And he throws in Bloab Rotspawn, who is one of the grossest characters in all the Nurgle Magakin Battletome. Nurgle's happy to have his servant, follow the instructions of Archaon because, frankly, he gets to steal glory from his brother Khorne and get a slice of Aqshy. And this is really cool because you can see Archaon playing the gods off each other, which is a really cool thing to see. And the Nurgle army comes in under Bloab and just wrecks face because the Stormcast were not ready for it whatsoever. Celestant Prime comes in from the Hallowed Knights to help, with a new buddy in tow. His name is Tornus, the reforged version of Torglug from Gurran. And Tornus goes ballistic when he sees the Nurgle stuff. He's just like, he knows they're probably the freshest troops on the battlefield, probably should fight the Khorne that are still there, but goes straight for the Nurgle stuff, just being absolutely personally insulted by what they made him become. But ultimately this is still just more kind of grinding combat. Until Khorne decides, we need to shake things up even more. Because Archaon didn't do it enough. So he takes Skarbrand, who is, of course, unchained because the Stormcast didn't grab the brass chain, and hurls him into this combat. At the same time, Archaon taps Korgus Kull on the shoulder and says, I have another mission for you, my friend, and pulls him off to the side. So really what's happening is that Skarbrand is there and really functions as a distraction so that the Stormcast can't stop what Korgus Kull is about to do. Remember, he has a personal mission from Archaon. And this distraction totally works because you can't ignore Skarbrand. He's huge, he's loud, and he tears through everything. What's funny is that the way Khorne drops him in is right behind Bloab Rotspawn's army. So now, of course, the Nurgle Warband is trapped between Stormcast Eternals and the living embodiment of rage, Skarbrand, which does not end well for Bloab. He gets absolutely decimated, blown away, not killed, but certainly defeated. And Skarbrand, after tearing straight through the Nurgle Warband, dives headlong into the Stormcast Eternals line. And this is not even a fair fight. When I say that Skarbrand is unstoppable in this scenario, he absolutely is, to the point where Ionis Cretborn, who was with them, as a small remnant contingent of Hammers of Sigmar, who's following along with the Tempest Lords, looks over and sees a strange Realmgate nearby. He kind of looks around the realm. I'll put the map back up here so we can see. He sees a Realmgate near him, and he sees one at the top of a huge mountain nearby, and they match. So he gets the idea in his head, oh, I got an idea. And he orders all his forces, all the Stormcasts, fall back towards this Realmgate. Of course, the whole time they're falling back, Skarbrand is just tearing him limb from limb. When he gets to this thing, he puts his little reliquary on there, says a prayer, and they all lift up in the air and teleport to where this other Realmgate is on the mountaintop. Now this does a few things. This is a very important action that Ionis just took. One is it splits the Stormcast Eternal forces into two, because not everyone made it to that point before he actually teleported everyone. So now you have Stormcast who are on the main battlefield, and you have some that are on this mysterious mountain far away. More importantly, however, is it did take Skarbrand with him. So even though there's less Stormcast on the main battlefield, their main obstacle, Skarbrand, just left. He literally just left the fight. So this is actually a huge win. It's risky. You're betting it all on that remaining force in the mainland to be able to fight off whatever's left and whatever Archaon is planning to do with Ignax, but you remove kind of the biggest, most immediate threat to that. And on that mountain, we'll just kind of cut over there real quick as this story goes really, really quickly. Ionis is on top of the mountain. They're getting, again, killed, thrashed by Skarbrand. He is able to cause an earthquake, and half of the top of the mountain comes tumbling down, crushing Skarbrand. So they're not able to actually defeat him in combat. They have to move an entire mountain on him to get him to stop killing. And that's generally it over there, but Ionis made a huge sacrifice and risk by separating his forces in the hopes that getting rid of Scarbrand will allow the other half of the Stormcast army to do what they need to do. And so we're going to focus back on them. The mainland, of course, is called Asphyxia, and these guys get separated even further, because on Asphyxia, a huge horde of Bulgors and Beastmen attack from one side. This is not a super important subpoint. I think really it was more just to include those forces and give you another battle plan. But it adds diversity to the armies involved, and it shows how strapped the Stormcast Eternals are in this setup, and that everything in the realms is dangerous right now, because enemies have taken over almost completely. So this really is a war on like 100 fronts. So this remaining force Ionis had to leave gets split even further, as some have to go fight these Beastmen and Bulgors and such. Now we're going to pause here. I told you earlier that there was something in the top right of this picture called the Orb of Inferno, just like the sphere that we had in Chamon. This is a floating continent sub-realm, kind of like in the shape of a sphere. And during the Age of Chaos, and when Archaon was doing all of his conquests, he won this sphere to Chaos, he wiped out the people in there, and he assigned 4 demons to it. 1 from each god. He basically told each demon, hey, thank you all so much for doing what you do. I'm going to reward you with this whole continent inside the sphere. Did that 4 times to all 4 of the Chaos gods, purely so he could watch them fight. The idea being, he just wanted some entertainment. No one gets to leave until there is a winner. So it's kind of like a equal prison / reward, right? It's basically Thunderdome. You get to just watch people duke it out. However, he did get bored eventually because no one was really winning. The forces were so equally set that he just kind of left, and they've just been fighting in this perpetual thing for centuries. And after he left, a Seraphon Salon came in and saw what was happening and realized, okay, here's the thing. If anyone wins this fight, this huge Chaos army is just dumped out of the sphere, and this becomes like a base, basically. Like this thing becomes its own fortress in the sky. Can't have that. And so the Seraphon, for the last centuries, has been keeping these demons equally at each other's throat. When one gets a little too more powerful, he bumps it down, blackmails the others, and they just keep fighting and devolving. So you have this fight between 4 demons from Slaanesh, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, perpetually fighting for centuries because this Slann is orchestrating it. Well, remember when Archaon stepped in and grabbed Korgus Kull? He sends Kull on a mission to go stop and unite these demon armies. They go in, they disrupt the Seraphon's plans. They are able to, I'm abbreviating this very, very much, but he's able to unite them. They're all like, let's get the heck out of this stupid orb thing. And with that, right there, locally, a huge demon army just comes up and is ready to fight against the Stormcast Eternals. Didn't require summoning. It was already there. They were just distracted, where Korgus Kull just walked in and undistracted them. So now Archaon has a massive force of reinforcements right at the site of where the Godbeast is. And this matters because, going back to our talk about the Stormcast, how they kept getting split and pulled in different directions, this is the third front they have to fight. Stormcast are trying to reach this little floating crescent mountain that Ignax is chained to, with just a few of them being free to do so. I'm going to pull the map back up here. We're going to look at this little crescent. This is the anchor to which the Godbeast is tied to. And on that little crescent are a bunch of Fire Slayer lodges. So the Stormcast Eternals make it their way up there. They're able to kind of convince the Fire Slayers, hey, bad stuff's coming. Team up. We need to get Ignax under control. And what's interesting, without much explanation, the Fire Slayers seem to be ready for this. A particular rune smiter had visions of this happening, and so he's been crafting this very intricate rune of binding. And it's supposedly infused with the magics of Grimnir himself. And they lead an all-or-nothing campaign towards Ignax. They fight all the way there. They're fighting the demon host that just popped into the battlefield, all the Khorne bloodbound forces that are still there. Like I said, this is do or die, and so they finally make it up the chains to Ignax, basically chuck the Rune Father towards the beast. Right there, the Rune Father is able to attach this rune of binding to Ignax to control him, and then is immediately vaporized because it's just the sheer heat from it. It's like flying into the sun. The Stormcast get overwhelmed. They have to fall back because there's just no winning this. Archaon moves up to the head of Ignax, stabs him in the temple, and somehow this infects him, corrupts his mind, and he falls under the sway of chaos. Archaon breaks the chains that bind him. He's now this fire serpent raging across the skies under the control of Archaon, and they fly away. Now, important to note, this rune of binding is becoming very important in tomorrow's video because it is still attached to him. Someone can control Ignax, but Archaon does not know that. He can't see the rune. He's completely unaware that the Fire Slayers ever put it on him. So that's just a little plot nugget to kind of return to later. But on the surface, the good guys have been dealt a major blow. One of the two most powerful beasts, the serpents in the sky, Argentine and Ignax, are now under the control of Archaon the Ever-Chosen. So this is a huge win for him. Now we travel over to the War of Life in Guran. And this one is really great because it kind of departs from the story with Alariel and gives us a perspective of what's going on in the realm in general. We open to Stormcast Eternals fighting with Skaven. Celestial Vindicators are there with a reinforcement of Knights Excelsior. These are the blue guys and the white guys when it comes to Stormcast Chambers if you're looking at their color schemes. And they're fighting Clan Scryer and Verminous. And everything's going really well for the Stormcast Eternals, but they can't figure out the Skaven attack pattern. They're just kind of popping up in really weird places and doing strange rituals. None of it makes sense, but they're just kind of slaughtering them anyway. Until at one point, two of the leaders of these Stormcast armies, a vision of Alariel. And it's just like projected in vines. It's not her body. She's just trying to communicate from the earth, basically, because that's where she's planted into. Some essence of her is trying to communicate and tells them exactly what's happening. You guys are idiots. You're not seeing the pattern here. The Skaven are attacking important nerve centers, sort of like communication nodes, if you will, and they're trying to wake up a Godbeast that's existing right underneath your feet. His name is Behemoth. He is the World Titan, and you have to stop him from being woken up. So immediately they know what's going on. The stakes are set super high. They're like, oh, we're not just having fun slaughtering these guys. Like, oh snap. They're like enacting this master plan that we had no idea about. We need to like get on this. And as they're doing this, these little fights all around, if you actually read the book in chronological order, the Skaven kind of lead them through a romp that goes through like the eastern side, up north, and kind of in a big spiral. They're just kind of hitting all the points that will wake up Behemoth. So it takes them kind of on this journey all across this section of Guran, trying to stop the Skaven, trying to get ahead of them. And as this is going on, the great Godbeast itself is starting to wake up under the ground. So huge earthquakes are happening. Mountains are kind of sliding off the side. Again, this thing is underneath them. We don't know what it looks like, but it's under them, tearing up the earth from underground. And as they're kind of going in this pattern, trying to find all of the nerve areas to keep Behemoth from being awoken, they encounter all manner of forces of destruction. In particular note, they fight a clan of Spiderfang Grots, a tribe that's made of nothing but Gargants, those big giants, and a bunch of greenskins. It's like a bunch of mini battles just kind of crammed into this arching narrative of stop this thing from waking up. But ultimately, Behemoth is roused, and he stands and sees Guran. Now, we don't have a good depiction of what this Godbeast looks like. If it's a serpent, or if it's just like a humanoid figure, stands up, sees what's happening to the realm, and is absolutely enraged. Because not only is he seeing Guran corrupted by Nurgle, but he himself is starting to be affected by it, just like Argentina was corrupted by Tzeentch when he kind of took over that realm. Behemoth is not in his right mind. He's partially corrupted, enraged about what he's seeing, but doesn't really know how to rationalize what's happening. And ultimately the Stormcast Eternals determine he cannot be put back to sleep, he can't be swayed, can't be reasoned with, we gotta take him out. Because Archaon cannot be allowed to have another Godbeast. So they continue with these huge fights, mostly kind of like at their feet, trying to like get this thing to topple over, to die. Stormcasts call in colossal meteor strikes, just like pure hunks of Azir energy, just like hurled at this thing, with a lightning storm going off. To make a long battle short, they're able actually, all these things kind of converge, hit Behemoth in the skull, and are able to kill the Godbeast himself. He falls, and it's like a continent falling, hits the earth, decimates everything. The entire region of the map that we've just been exploring, the entire section we've been running around trying to stop them from waking him up, it's all gone. It's just been crushed straight out when this guy falls on him. The Hallowed Knights were said to have wept when they saw all their hard work was defeated. All the things that they've spent this entire series trying to reclaim, rebuild, defend, it's all gone, which must be so defeating. And with that, Archaon successfully takes one Godbeast with an asterisk, meaning there's still a control rune or binding on Ignax he doesn't know about yet. And his second attempt of getting Behemoth, the World Titan, on his side failed because the Stormcast were able to eliminate him as a possible enemy. And so this one, like I said, it's a little more non-linear than the other books. This is really just Archaon trying to seize an opportunity, right? Empire Strikes Back style stuff. So why does this book matter in the context of the Realmgate Wars, seeing as how none of it has to do with realm gates? Well, here's the thing. This is what it looks like when Archaon enters the fight. Titanic devastation by impossible enemies. In this story, a bunch of Fire Slayers are just eliminated, just wiped out to the man. Stormcast Eternals lose just about all the time. The only real win is not letting Archaon control Behemoth. They didn't get it for their side. He's not an engine of destruction for the forces of order. He's just not chaos, which the amount of devastation and toll that it took to achieve that kind of sullies it as a victory. Because overall, this book is a win for the bad guys. Archaon has Ignax. We don't want to forget the Rune of Binding, but he has what he needs. And with these two kind of weapons in his pocket, Argentine and Ignax, he is ready for a fight. Also to note here, while this is happening simultaneously, we now know Alarielle is alive. She didn't die in her soul pod form, but she's not ready to fight yet. And it's also given in some exposition towards the end that Stormcasts are dying so quickly that the reforging process can't keep up with the war effort needs. So this is really where we see the kind of grindy aspect of these huge protracted combats where both sides are taking licks. The forces of order, Stormcast in particular, did a great opening act in reclaiming all these realm gates, opening the doors to Azir, pushing the enemy away, and kind of giving a strong start to the Realmgate Wars. And now Archaon is going to seize on that opportunity by saying, oh, you opened your doors? I'm going to make you regret that. And so that's, to summarize, what this book truly is about. And it sets us up perfectly for tomorrow's video. So friends, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying this video series. This book was a little bit left field for me when it first came out. I was like, oh, why do the Godbeasts have to be on this? But they really do kind of fit well into tomorrow's video. When you talk about what Archaon is planning, how he's going to end the Realmgate Wars and all kind of stuff. So just hang in there. A lot of folks talked about Godbeasts when I asked for folks for questions, for content, future videos, that kind of stuff. A lot of people have questions about Godbeasts simply because they kind of don't fit always into some of the more prominent narratives that we see. But they are a really cool thing. They add a lot of flavor and fantasy elements to the AOS universe, and I just think they're awesome. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. Go ahead, click subscribe, leave in the comments down below. Tell me what your thoughts are on the Godbeasts. I think it'd be a really fun discussion to have. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.